Do y'all have questions or do you want to dive in? Okay, I think I'm recording. I think my phone is now on. Don't call me right now. Reading. Sorry, I got distracted from my sister calling me. She's supposed to like come by here and get this crib a month of Sundays ago, and now she like, big sister, we on our way to get a crib. I'm like, because I'm one of them people that you're not supposed to buy too early, so I wouldn't let her know that I bought a crib for $20 at Walmart when they was on sale back when she was 5 weeks pregnant. Now she bigger, I told her. So, okay. Any questions before we get started? On anything, anywhere, anything? Oh, my spirit's okay. I'm still grieving. I don't know, like some of y'all may know, I had one of my babies, he was 8. He died in a house fire about 2 weeks ago now. So we had a funeral and all the things, and it's been hard for all of us. She's a birth photographer in the community, and I caught 2 of her babies, and she lost her two sons, her 2 oldest children, and her father in the same house fire. It was hard. So that's why I'm talking about this particular herb, because I've been utilizing it a lot. But if I can find my PowerPoint, we'll talk about it. Because I was like, this is what I want to talk about today instead of I am going to talk a little bit about what I was supposed to talk about though. Also going to talk about this beautiful herb once I find where I put the PowerPoint. I seem to find that I keep myself on task if I utilize a PowerPoint. So I'm like, oh, you stay on topic when you do that. So I will do that. There we are. Yeah. Um, so I'm going to make somebody else a host if that's okay, so that you can let whoever else in. That'll be helpful for me. Aaron, is that okay? Are you willing to be that person? If I can do that, because I get distracted. No, you don't need a computer. It's just like somebody will pop up. Oh, I can't do that because then I can't, never mind. Then I can't share my screen because I can share. Okay, never mind. I'll just do it. If somebody texts me, I'll be like, I'm sorry I didn't let you in. I didn't see you, but try to make it work. But yeah, so it's been not the nicest of weeks because of that. It's really hard when you see a person that you helped welcome forth. I mean, I've had other babies, like little bitty babies, like have demises and stuff like that, but not this is the first time I've had like one that I was expecting, expecting him to get to 18, but that was not his that was not his story. So anyway, for him or his brother, um, or his grandfather. So they all rest together. Just, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful ceremony. They only had one physical body. And so they took what was remaining of the ashes of the other two physical bodies and put it with the one physical body they had. And so they all were laid to rest together. As it should be. So yeah, anyway. Whew. So I have been using the medicine of mimosa. Is everybody familiar with mimosa? Have you guys seen her? She's blooming. She's finishing her bloom in my region. She's still blooming pretty beautifully in central Mississippi and South Mississippi and some places north of it. We just had too much water, and so the rain has really released her presence from us. But she's medicine that I love. I typically make mimosa tincture every year. Um, she does last a while, so you don't have to make her every year. I just like to make her. And so when I made her twice this year, so I made her first with the tree that I typically harvest from in my mama's yard. And it was a very happy, beautiful time. And I was just taking her when it was time. And I was just like, oh, you're so beautiful. And I'm getting your medicine for those who need Nervine and support. That is what I'm getting you for. And this tree is full of wisdom. I also make a bark tincture, which is a heavier mimosa tincture with just the bark, and we'll talk about that. But so then little Gus and Caden and their granddad Mike died. Actually went for a ride and saw some more mimosa and took that mimosa. So that tincture is still sitting, of course, because it's only been weeks, but that tincture is full of the medicine grief and sorrow and loss of potential and that sort of stuff. So it wouldn't necessarily be a medicine that I would add for others, but it is a healing for grief. So if someone needs something for grief, that Nervine specifically is for that. And so speaking of that, when you're bringing in medicine, when you're harvesting something, you want to really think about your mindset, the mindset of the planet, like what is going on. Are things in turmoil? Are you in turmoil? Are you at peace? Are you relaxed? Like what state are you in when you're harvesting a particular plant product? Sometimes you may need to wait till tomorrow. Sometimes you'll hear some people say you don't want to harvest on your first day of your bleed. Some people say you do harvest on your bleed. It depends on what modalities of healing arts you follow. It hasn't ever been a problem for me because like we were talking about periods in the beginning, my periods have always been long. But now that they're shorter, like typical people, I do state mind of where I am in my moon cycle when I'm harvesting as well. I tend to want to harvest during ovulation, of course, because that's our time of creativity, that's our time of openness, that's our time of accepting. And so that's the time that I tend to harvest. Now, sometimes if I wait 2-3 weeks until I'm ovulating, I might miss out on a medicine. but I wanted to specifically pull this medicine for the potential of grief, just because this is like a second grief cycle that I'm having to deal with in this season of my life. And so I'm like, I need something that I can reach if I end up having to do this again, or if I see someone in community that needs this. So I made a big batch of mimosa tincture, and I'm going to add her to some other helpers for a grief tincture, because that's what the medicine is that she was harvested under. So anyway, we're going to pop into her, the medicine of mimosa flower. If you haven't seen mimosa, how she looks, beautiful green plant that almost looks like ferns, and you don't really notice her until after she blooms. So when she blooms, you're like, oh wow, she's beautiful, she's pink. What is that? You see her on the side of the road. She typically is going to be in a place of direct sunlight, but shade. So she doesn't like a full shade. So you're not typically not going to see her in the middle of the woods, but you might see her on the side of the road. You might see her on the edge of the woods. She'll be places like that instead of right in the woods. So be mindful of her as you see her, but she is gorgeous. So when we're talking about the medicine of mimosa, you will see that you have young trees and older trees. So if I'm gonna make a bark tincture of mimosa, I want more wisdom in that, because I want it to be really wise and full of all kinds of things. And so I tend to pull a bark off of an older tree or a taller tree. And this is also one like cotton root, so you're actually going to shave the bark off, and so you wouldn't necessarily use the stem. Can you chop it up and use it that way and still get the medicine of the bark? Sure, you can. You can do it however you want. But the traditional way to create her would be to shave the bark off each branch that you utilize, and then tincture that bark instead. And what I would use for a flower tincture would typically be a younger tree, because think about how the spring of her life is. She's so exciting, and she's like, oh man, I'm so excited. I'm so like full of energy. I'm so full of all the things. So a young tree, typically you'll see her flowers are really bright pink. And so her flowers are like, hey, and they stay bright pink a lot longer than the flowers of the tree of wisdom. And so when you're deciding which medicine you're going to take, you want to keep that into consideration. Either flower is great, but just thinking about the energies of the plant. And so typically my normal mimosa tincture that I just kind of do every year for my plant medicine, I get a little bit of all of them. So I'll get a young tree that might be down a back road that doesn't have a lot of whispers, or whispers that are not necessarily live whispers. And then I might get a tree that is over here where people are hustling and bustling. Of course, not a place that's been sprayed. And then I might get a tree that I just saw in the middle of clearing in the woods, and it's a tree that's just been sitting, and people may walk by her, but not as much as a tree that's in the middle of somebody's yard. So I take a lot of different flowers, because I want to know what, medicine is going to be different in other places. And while you're harvesting, you're always going to say, oh, mimosa, you are known for your mood support. Mimosa, you are known for this. So you want to speak into your plant material what the expectation is of her as well. So what is mimosa? So you have a botanical name that I cannot pronounce, because y'all know me and names. So if someone would like to pronounce Albizia gelibrizin, they can. But yeah, your girl can't do that. Anybody pronounce that? Anybody get it? Anybody want to get it? There you go. And then the common names are mimosa. If you live in the South, the deep South, you've heard a Black woman say a pomosa tree. That's how it was pronounced here. And sometimes you'll hear pomimosa. It's still mimosa. It's the same tree. It's also called a silk tree, and it's also called a happiness tree. And it's called a silk tree because of the worms that really enjoy this tree. And so they create webs that are made of silk. In China, they actually have silkworms who enjoy the mimosa tree, but here in the US, we tend to have just different kinds of worms, not necessarily silkworms, but their webs often look like silk, and that's why they call it that. Oh, I like Albreesia gel Jewel E. Brisson. Yeah, okay, thank you for the breakdown. I suck at trying to say words all the time. The mimosa tree is native of China and Persia. So you're going to see that in areas where there's a bigger Chinese influence or a place where there may have been a lot of trade. And so that's typically you're going to see that more in coastal regions, not always far up. Now, where I live in North Mississippi, and we had a big Asian population at one time before they went and rounded them up and put them in concentration camps. And that's a whole other thing. But with them, of course, they brought their plants. We have a lot of mimosa, and we also have a lot of kudzu. Those are both from the Asian continent instead of this continent, but they grow pretty prolifically, that big word. And so we see that a lot here and see that lasting impression of the folks of Asia that brought that in. Um, it's beloved for its fragrant smell. It's just, you're driving down the road and you like, what's that? Honeysuckle is done and now mimosa has came, and so she's bringing her own scent. Um, and so that's how you kind of tell her by her smell. She actually has a smell before she has flowers, but it's right before the bloom. So the smell comes actually from the flower bud and not the actual flower. The flower is the showing of the pink blossoms, but the bud itself is where the smell comes from. She is a member of the pea family, and so you want to keep that in mind when you're giving her medicine to folks. Historical and cultural uses of mimosa. For traditional Chinese medicine or TCM, she's known as He Huan He Hua, which basically means collective happiness flower. She supports grief, emotional imbalance, and irritability. So when you have folks that you're trying to treat, so say for instance, you have somebody who is having some issues with grief or emotional imbalance, sometimes you have those folks that are just like off the deep end, going back and forth and back and forth. And so you like, girl, you need to sit down. This is that person's medicine. It really kind of settles the spirit a lot. But the problem, well, I'm not going to say it's a problem. The medicine of mimosa is not long lasting, like something like lemon balm, skullcap, passion flower lasts for a long time. Mimosa is like a settler. She's like, okay, you need to chill out. And then you chill out, but she's not going to last a long time in an oral sense. But mimosa can be smoked, and some people do utilize that in smoking. And so it can be paired with any of the smoking herbs. Sometimes they do it for I was gonna say with hold on, let me get the marijuana right. Indica couch medicine. That's it, right? Yes. Sometimes she's paired with indica when people can't sleep. They do mimosa, indica, and sometimes a little catnip in their smoking blend, and they find that to be very helpful for insomnia and things of that nature. The catnip is going to keep it going, and the mimosa kind of starts the process. She's like, hey, you need to calm down. And then here comes the catnip, and she's like, yeah, that's right. Now come on, rest a little bit, baby, go on to sleep. And so they work with each other very well to help someone who's having that issue with having insomnia or sleeping. In Persian and Middle Eastern herbalism, she's a nerve tonic, also utilized for mood support. And in Western herbal revival, that's what they like to call us. She's good for grief work, postpartum mood care, and emotional trauma. So she's not necessarily one that you would utilize for just postpartum mood care. So because again, remember, she starts the process. And so she's like, oh girl, come on. And then you have to have something under her to make her to heal whatever's working, whatever's happening with the postpartum mood care or within mood care in general. Again, we talked about emotional trauma. She's really good for someone who just experienced a trauma on their body. You just had a car accident. Oh, girl, let me make you some tea with mimosa and lemon balm. And traditionally, people haven't worked a lot with the leaves. I did. Um, so I tend to experiment on myself because I know there is medicine work that's been lost that we don't know about. So sometimes I'm like, well, if the bark is good and the flowers is good, surely the leaves is good. And if you ever pull a mimosa leaf, she doesn't stay flat like that long. She stays flat for just a little bit and then she shrivels up. So she pretty much dries herself. So I did try to work with her some last year for a tea with her leaves, and I didn't really get that much of an effect. And mimosa is a beautiful herb for me. And that doesn't mean she never does an effect, but so I found that doesn't work as doesn't work as well as the flowers or the bark. Like today, my daughter and I harvested a little more mimosa, and she and I was just like eating the flowers, and then there were still some buds because this was a very young tree. And so I was like eating her buds. And so I was chill for about 30, 45 minutes. I was like, I want to go to sleep. And then I was like, you can't, you got stuff to do. You can't do that, you know. So just be mindful that she's short acting, but she gets you ready for whatever is the real medicine that comes after that. And some people use mimosa as their full medicine, but she tends to not, that's not her full purpose. The medicinal properties are, so the energetics of mimosa, we'll talk about energetics on our next slide. I just want to do mimosa first. The energetics is that she's sweet, she's slightly warm, and she's uplifting. Who can't look at those little pink flowers and think and not smile? You know, if you get really close and you see those pink flowers, you're like, man, that is magnificent. You know, that's a beautiful thing for me right now because I'm getting to experience her. She's slightly warm when we talk about the energetics of her, and she's also sweet, both in taste, but also when you utilize her. And when you're thinking about an herb that's energetically sweet, that's how you also decide what how you're going to make her. So the best use of mimosa is typically in a tea sweetened with honey, or also an elixir. So you'd use an alcohol that may have a sweet base. So mimosa, I wouldn't necessarily use her with corn whiskey. I might use her with a brandy or a spiced rum or something like that. Of course, it's got to still be a big proof. Can't, you know, make tinctures with 40 proof over here. Still got to have a big proof. But even if you utilize her with a smaller proof, you would then have to double tincture her. So you'd have to come in with another set of mimosa and another set of alcohol on top of that if you want to double tincture, but just do it the first time, don't worry about it. But with elixirs, you're bringing in the sweetness of honey, and so you're complementing what she already does. And so when you're learning about herbs, you want to know about how she shows up. What is your energetics? Like how do you make me feel? So then you talk about the bitters, they're typically bitter. So you're going to use a bitter or something with them. You're going to use them in seasoning and shaker bottles, you know, that sort of stuff. That's what we're doing with our bitters. We might make it with a tea, but it's a warm tea. It's going to hug me. I might put my bitters in with my soups and my stews, but I'm not going to put mimosa in my beef broth. You know what I mean? I mean, I might, but really that's not a good pairing, you know, so it's just things to think about. The actions of mimosa is that one, she's a beautiful nervine. She has a mild sedative and she's good for anti-anxiety. She's a mood elevator and she's an emotional heart tonic. And so when we talk about a heart tonic, we're not talking about the physical heart, we're talking about the metaphorical heart. So we're talking about, oh, someone who's been heartbroken, you would give them the medicine of mimosa. Someone who's dealing with grief. She's also an astringent, but only the bark. The bark is the utilization of the astringent. So make sure when you're talking, so when you're utilizing herbs, you know how we talked about top medicine and bottom medicine with fleabane. You want to think about the same thing with a lot of these herbs about, oh, you just can't say mimosa is great and you want to use her as an astringent, but you're only harvesting the flowers. You know, so you want to really know what each part is beneficial for. Common preparations for mimosa are a tincture. Most people utilize the flower. Like I said, some folks utilize the bud. You can also utilize the bark. I already talked about shaving it. Same thing, you're gonna sit it the same way. Of course, barks and roots, you sit them a little longer than tinctures that are made from flowers or leaves, just to make sure you pull all the density out of the herb or the plant matter. You also can utilize her as an infusion or a tea. Um, there are mimosa flower essences. If you're into flower essences, you can make your own with mimosa. They say mimosa is an easy one to make flower essences. I haven't ever made a flower essence. I'm just entrenched in homeopathy. Um, you can also do her as a glyceride. So if you want a mimosa tincture to help with a kid's sleep, you wouldn't necessarily always give a child an alcohol-based tincture, but you could give them a glyceride. But keep in mind, glycerides only last a year. They're typically not as shelf stable as tinctures. So that's what so if you had a baby and you were looking for something like you had a baby who was colicky, you could do a blend of maybe mimosa and catnip for that baby. And you could even do it as an oil and then put that oil on their feet. So remember we talked about how babies, get their things in with their feet, or you can rub them down, with that as a massage oil, sort of the same way that you would do lavender. We have so many things that we can pull in that don't have to be lavender. So keep in mind the skin is the biggest organ, so you can always use stuff in a rub or oil. You can also do a bath with mimosa. If it's a flower, they're really light. The medicine is really easily pulled from that. So if you had a warm herbal bath or whatever, you can utilize that for that. You will often see mimosa blended with lemon balm, motherwort, or lavender. Lavender is a really good, you would see people put it with lavender because lavender is also a very sweet herb when you're talking about the energetics of it. So sometimes you'll see a preparation of those two. I like mimosa, skullcap, and passion flower as a sleep blend. Those tend to be really helpful because mimosa is like, girl, sit down. And then passion flower was like, yeah, don't you want to relax a little bit? And then skullcap is like, we put you to sleep and you better stay there. So I like them together, as a sleep blend. I see that to be very effective for third trimester. I don't use mimosa a ton with second trimester because it does affect dreams. If you look at the energetics, not the energetics, but the psychology of the herb, then you'll find that mimosa affects dreams in the way that it gives you less than sweet dreams. And so the anxieties, so it's an anti-anxiety because it gets anxiety out of your conscious mind, but what it does, it puts it in the subconscious. And so when it's in the subconscious, then you dream weird. And so second trimester is already a time of dreams. And so I just tend to not use that medicine in second trimester in my own practice, but some people utilize it all the time. And some people say mimosa is not a good herb. Um, some people say mimosa is not a good herb for pregnancy. So again, you're gonna have to figure out what pathway of herbalism you're gonna follow. Mimosa and midwifery and perinatal care, support for pregnancy stress, mood swings, and insomnia. Like I said, my sleep tincture is mimosa, passion flower, and skullcap for that. Emotional care for birth trauma, and perinatal grief. You have someone who had a miscarriage, they're facing a stillbirth, there's an issue with the baby. This is a really good herb to bring to her so she can just pipe down just a little bit so she can think if she needs to, but also birth trauma. So first trimester, somebody comes in with birth trauma or a traumatic thing happens at the birth, but most are not going to knock them on their tail to sleep the same way passion flower or some of these other ones will. Postpartum mood support, like I said, it's not the primary, but it does get things moving in that direction. So it's really good for that. And it's often paired with other calming herbs. All these nervines together can make beautiful blends, but you got to also keep in mind what the energetics are. So we talked about things being sweet and that sort of stuff. And so when you pair them together, you want them to be a good mix. It's almost like having Kool-Aid, making Kool-Aid the right way. That's patience in the woods, y'all. Getting some mimosa and like sniffing it. It's funny. It's generally considered safe in small doses for adults. You will see most things say use caution in pregnancy because it says limited research. You will see that in mostly everything. You do want to avoid it with people who have legume allergies. Remember, we said it was part of the pea family. And so if they have allergies to legumes, they should not ingest mimosa. And it's primarily for emotional support, not many physical ailments. Mixologist. Mimosa, in traditional wisdom, mimosa is a heart calming herb in TCM. And like I said, the physical, not the physical heart, the metaphorical heart. It's a remedy to lift the spirit and lighten sorrow, and a symbol of joy and peace after hardship. So, if you read a lot, you probably have seen people make mimosa wine. They start the year off with wisteria cordial, then they make mimosa wine, and then the muscadines and berries are ready, and then they make a muscadine wine or something that's gonna last throughout the season. And so mimosa is utilized for that as well. You can see on this picture that this mimosa tree is almost in decline because her flowers are not real bright pink like the ones we saw before. And this is we're looking for actually looking for branches for the bark medicine. And so so just keep that in mind that the colors do fade, and when the color fades, the medicine fades. So you want to get a really bright one when you're looking at the if you when you're looking at harvesting the plant, I mean the flowers. Now, if the medicine is fading out of the flowers, then it's moving into the leaves and back into the bark and down to the root. And so you can harvest it right after this time. And I wouldn't harvest anything but a branch that's like close to the flower. But as the year goes on in the fall, you can go out there and cut a nice big branch off of a mimosa tree to harvest for the bark, because that's going to be the perfect time for that when you're pulling roots and burdock root and all that stuff. You can also pull bark from mimosa and that sort of stuff, because in the fall that medicine is moving back down into the root of the tree and sitting there dormant during the winter just to come back up and be ready in the spring. Questions or discussion about mimosa? Has anybody used mimosa?
I have a question.
Mhm. Did you say something?
Oh, yes, I did. I said I have a question. So, I think that I have this tree in my yard. I've seen it so many times. I've used it before. Um, but for 2 years now, I have the leaves that look. It grows up and it gets big, but the bark
It
is
doesn't.
very thin. So I think my question is like, does it take a while to flower, or could this possibly be a different tree?
It takes a while to flower, and some of them, they have to have the perfect environment. So I have, my mama has a mimosa tree in her yard. I get a lot of medicine from my mama's yard. Like right now, it's time to get giant ironweed, top root, not bottom root yet. But so I have a lot of medicine in my mama's yard. There's one tree that I've watched for quite a while, and it worked it bloomed a lot and then it stopped blooming. But when I looked at like the shade of the tree, so my daughter is like an aspiring botanist. And so she's like the one that's always like, Mom, this plant needs, this much shade or this much water or whatever, whatever. And when I saw like, so this tree is sitting in a place where she like cleared some brush. And so I think that tree is getting too much sunlight, and that's why it's not blooming. So it has to have like the appropriate stuff. Sometimes you'll see a tree next to another mimosa tree that doesn't bloom, so it may just not have the right stuff.
Yeah. I was wondering if it was maybe too young because it's only been 2 years since I began to see these particular leaves. They look very fern-like. It's very tropical looking too. And I Google has this thing where you can like take a picture
Yeah,
of it. I assumed that it was a mimosa tree, but I'm like, wait, I don't know if I live in the right environment for this type of tree. Um, but when I did use Google, the first one that came up was mimosa, but a different one came up too, and they look so similar. So I was just like, I'm not sure if this is that. But I have seen it for 2 years now. It's come up with a whole bunch of leaves, but the branches are still very small. So I don't know, like maybe I have to wait till it gets mature for it to flower, or if it's just not going to flower because of the environment.
it may not have enough pollinators. You're gonna have pollinators too for that one.
Yeah,
So maybe,
yeah,
yeah, depending on the location. And there's also a yellow mimosa tree. So there's the pink pretty one, and then they have a yellow one, which is why mimosas, the drink, are yellow. It's after that that flower and not the flower of the pink mimosa tree. So
Hmm.
maybe and the leaves are very similar. But I think the difference in the leaves on that one, so like the mimosa leaf, like if you look at this picture, the mimosa leaf, she has one big leaf that has small leaves that has small leaves. And
Yeah,
so she doesn't, so if you look at her whole leaf head, it doesn't have a tip that sticks out of the leaf. You know what I'm saying? The tip is two leaves that are
yes, yes,
smaller
yes.
leaves. But the yellow mimosa has a tip that sticks out. So that's the difference. So look at it really good and see if it might just be that yellow one and not the pink one.
I think it's depending on what you just said, because I sent you a picture of it, but depending on what you just said, I think it might be a mimosa tree. I just might not have. I'm upper north, so I might not have the proper environment for it to fully do what it needs to do.
Maybe these leaves look a little, I don't know.
They similar, but I don't know.
Yeah, so if you look at the top, you see where your hand is at, and you look at the top, there's two leaves. You see at the very end of this whole leaf head, there's a leaf that sticks straight out.
Uh-huh.
Pink mimosa doesn't do that. So if you look at the mimosa on the picture here, there's not a stick out leaf at the end of the batch of leaves. It's two leaves. So unless the picture looks different, that's the only thing I
Mm.
could see different. It looks like mimosa.
It kind of does, but I feel like it's just not. It's still a baby, so it's so hard for me to. I mean, I guess
Yeah,
I'll just wait. I'll just wait and see what happens, what comes of it. And
they say time will tell. That's what the old folks say.
yeah, yeah. But I thank
Yeah,
you.
welcome. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking. It may just be young still. She may not be ready. The leaves don't look that dark either. Are they dark? Are they?
They are very dark. Like in person, they're
Uh-huh.
deep.
Yeah. A
Like some of
little.
well, I will say some of them are very deep, but the ones that are like directly in the sun seem like they are lighter. Like they got maybe sun blanched. I don't know if that's a thing, but um, the ones that are a little bit more in the shade are very, very deep green, and the one that like sticks out in the sun are a little bit lighter than the ones that don't go right in the sun.
Yeah. So she may just be getting too much sun, or she may just be young. I've seen really young ones that are like as tall as me, and I'm not tall, blooming. And then I've seen some bigger than that not bloom. But it also like I don't know how much spray gets on around this tree. They're very temperamental. So that my property next door to my property where there was a clearing in the woods, there was a mimosa tree. My neighbor sprays the yard. Now, I mean he sprays his fence line, and that mimosa tree hasn't bloomed in 3 years. And so I think it's because he sprayed, but it was blooming when I first moved out here, so I don't know. But it looks like it. More questions? Yeah, quiet today. All right, we shall move on to our next one. Share screen. Okay, we're gonna talk a little bit about Materia Medica. We've already talked about it, so y'all are familiar with what Materia Medica is. So we're gonna fly through because you now reached the point where you need to start creating your own Materia Medica for your practice. And so this is gonna be for both your herbal supports and your homeopathy, whatever supports you're gonna utilize for your clients. A Materia Medica, just like in your little mommy or Homeopathy for Mommy's book, is a personalized reference page about an herb or remedy. It includes botanical info, actions, uses, preparations, and safety. It's used for study and clinical guidance, when you're working with your clients. It's important for midwives to have one because essentially you can't keep everything in your head. It's impossible. Especially for the herbs or the homeopathic remedies you don't use a lot. I mean, of course, you're gonna remember Nux vomica because people use it for first trimester, and then they use it for second trimester, and you can use it for constipation, and you can use it for colic. So that one's an easy one. You might even remember poke. But if we pull out something like Hep or Soft, you're gonna be like, what's that? Like that's used for cough, and that's going to be utilized just in seasons. And so that's not information that you want to keep in your head all the time. It supports safe informed herbal use. I have to look at my Materia Medica all the time because I be getting herbs mixed up sometimes. I be like, yeah, that one is da da da. And I've gotten to a point now when my herbal supports for people, I only use the herbs that are in my region. I consider myself a bioregional herbalist. Don't ask me about Jamaican dog blood. I mean, I know about it, but that's not an herb of my region. So I'm an expert of my regional herbs. You asked me about fleabane, burdock root, everything that grow in my yard, everything that grow right here in North Mississippi. I can give you every little blah 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 blah. But I'm not from Jamaica, and I don't know about Jamaican dogwood in the way with these other herbs because I've sat with this medicine. So I've sat in the ground and I've watched her grow, and I know what she looks like, and I know what she says, and all that other stuff. And so I consider myself an expert in those herbs. Now, I might still have Jamaican dog blood in my Materia Medica because it is very beautiful, beneficial for folks. And so it's a nice herb to know about, but I'm going to have to flip through in order to sit and talk about it because it's not one of my herbs that I've gotten more familiar with, that I have a working relationship with, I guess I'll say. So it's really important. It's really important to, yes, I keep pictures next to it. Mine is actually moving from a handwritten notebook to a Google Doc. And so I'm working on it. And so I'm moving like all my handwritten stuff onto paper so I can print it out because it literally doesn't make no sense to have all these handwriting because who's gonna be able to read that, when I die? So it just needs to be in type so it's easily read and deciphered and all that stuff. Um when the other reason why you should have one is because it builds a record of trusted remedies. It lets you know which remedies work, and you're gonna have notes about it. I've used this 3 times for this particular thing, and it does not work. So I'm gonna start using something else. You can put that note in your Materia Medica. So then 5 years from now, when somebody asks you about why don't you ever use catnip to help a colic? Well, you go back to your Materia Medica and your notes and you say, well, I used it with 5 babies and it does not work for them. So I started using mimosa oil or, something else. It does encourage online ongoing learning because you have to like, this is just like your protocols. Your Materia Medica is going to be constantly getting updated. You're going to hear something from somebody and you can be like, hey, I didn't know that about that herb. That's like Yellow Dock. I use Yellow Dock all the time when I was beginning my herbal practice. Anytime anybody was anemic, yeah, use Yellow Dock, Yellow Dock, Yellow Dock. And then I took a class with a master herbalist and she was talking about how Yellow Dock comes out your liver. I mean, the stores of your liver. I was like, huh? And then I went down in the deep trenches of studying all the herbal books, and it did. And I was like, well, why are we utilizing that as a frontline remedy for anemia for pregnant folks? Because they need all their blood stores. You know, that ain't make no sense. So then I started utilizing Yellow Dock in a different way, or being very supportive of building the blood if I did use Yellow Dock to push out those iron stores. So you're constantly learning and you're constantly updating your Materia Medica, which is another reason why it's nice to have it in print. Because if it's in print, you can easily update a page and then reprint it out, and then you have a beautiful page for you to look at for your resources or for resources to share so others can see. It creates a personal apothecary library, basically. What are the things that you utilize? It's just like for my postpartum herbal bath, I think there's 12 different herbs in there. I don't remember what 12 herbs it is. Somebody was talking about herbal bath, and I was like, yeah, and you can use this and this and this. And in my brain, I was trying to remember what 12 herbs I use because I don't make herbal bath every day. I make it about every 6 months. So I'm not going to remember everything, especially because I'm also making heart elixir and I'm also making this and I'm also making that. So if you have a Materia Medica, you also could have a place for your herbal recipes, for your blends that you do, or blends that you've heard of that you might want to do later, or you know, that sort of stuff can be in there as well. So key elements to include on a Materia Medica include, hold on, y'all pictures at the bottom, I can't read. Include the botanical or Latin name, even if you can't say it, like mimosa blah, 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 blah. I was saying earlier. The common names, mimosa, my Materia Medica includes plumosa, because somebody who's reading this 100 years from now, when I'm dead and gone, they may all be calling it plumosa, but plumosa is mimosa. That's the same herb. It's important for other people to know, and also for you to know. We're not gonna. Hopefully, we all keep our faculties. I'm like, I want to be 99, just still talking all kind of stuff. But I mean, you know, the reality of it is probably not that. And so, if I go back and look at my Materia Medica 50 years from now, then I want to be able to know what I said. Because if it's my handwriting, I already got garbage handwriting. I'm not going to be able to read my own stuff. Sometimes I look back at notebooks and I'll be like, I don't even know what that say. So that's not helpful for myself or anybody. You want to know what plant family she comes from, or the remedy origin, the parts used. Remember, we were talking about mimosa, you know, you can use her flowers, you can use young flowers, you can use old flowers. Sometimes, you know, you can maybe play around with leaves, but then the bark, and then the bark has to be shaved. And so you want to be able to utilize that, but then also talk about the energetics of the medicine, of when to use the bark, when do you use the flower. All that can be part of parts used. The actions, what does she do? And you want to put down all the actions she potentially could do. You know, we talked about mimosa being utilized for a lot of things. Her top line remedy is as a nerve balm, but she can also be a mood stabilizer and a sedative. Some people use her to calm the uterus. Because she's calms things, she's calming. And so some people, so one thing that I tried that worked really good, I paired mimosa with fleabane, because you know there's fleabane, and then you got a season of just like your daisy flowers and your black-eyed Susans and all that stuff that we don't typically use a lot of love, but we also have plantain after the fleabane, and then we have mimosa. So what I did was I put fleabane, mimosa, and plantain together to help with what am I trying to say, flooding. And so people just having like lots of bleeding, especially with the first period. And so I would give this tincture to people for their first period. Be like, your first period is crazy. Here is a good tincture that can sometimes slow it down if you need it to be slowed down. And it worked really good. And so So you can utilize her by her energetics, not always by what somebody says she's good for. So when you're thinking about something being a sedative, it just doesn't sedate your mind. It also can sedate other parts of your body. So keep that in mind. Mimosa has been used with native people as an anti-diuretic. It's a sedative. It calms the intestinal tract, so it has other utilizations when you think about the actions of what the herb does. So keep that in mind. You're also going to talk about the indications when we're going to use it, preparations and dosage. If you have a certain way that you're gonna do that, I'm going to utilize mimosa as a tincture mostly, or I'm going to, take the flower and make it as a tea. The thing about the flower of mimosa is it's not shelf stable. Those flowers look raggedy when you've had them longer than a day. So the medicine is truly in the tincture. That's the best utilization of it. You're also going to put down safety and contraindications. We talked about in small doses is good for adults, but I typically use mimosa with people, like I said, as a front medicine. It's like, here, take this, now take this. And so we're not giving mimosa as a constant herb. It's just being used as and, so sometimes you can give something like and or but or it, if, and then you give them what they need. The energetics, we already talked about that. And then you're going to talk about, you can also include your notes or your personal observations. So I use mimosa with blah, 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 and so this is where some people might have a couple of pages, like if you're an active herbalist, or homeopathic practitioner, you could have a couple of pages of notes behind mimosa, because you can say, gave mimosa to 36-year-old female on blah, blah, blah date because of loss of father. Client seemed to calm down from mimosa tincture, had to repeat in 2 days or whatever. And so that's enough information. And then the next time you may have given it again, you just write it down there. You keep writing those notes. Eventually you might find that dosage that you've been utilizing, that you got out of Susan Weed's book or something 10 years ago, maybe needs more. And when we talk about our soil being depleted, our plants don't all have the same medicine they always have. So some of these plants, you're going to be utilizing more of the herb. And so that's why I like to get plants that are quiet. So, and I told you guys about my neighbor's woods that he lets me walk. There's not any mimosa out there because it's woods, it's all shaded. There's not any around the edges. But I like to go deep into the woods, and then there may be a clearing with, say, burdock root. And so that burdock root to me is going to have more medicine, because she's in the middle of the woods. Nobody's bothering her, except for the animals, and it's quiet there. And she's not having to listen to all the hustle and bustle of what we're doing in our lives. There's none of those like cell phone, nothing's out there. It's just, he has 50 acres of just woods. And so I like to go get medicine out there when I can. Chanterelles, all the mushrooms are out there. And a lot of times they're going to get to go, and then they're going to be seeded, because they're just going to go back to the dirt because nobody is utilizing them. So they're constantly giving the soil back the wisdom of what their medicine is supposed to be, instead of picking up burdock on the side of the road, if that makes sense. Okay, when you're doing a sample layout, you're gonna have, like we said, the botanical name. It doesn't have to be fancy, a Materia Medica. You might want to put the picture there, because hello, pictures are like gold. And if you're making it anyway, throw a picture in there. I like to have a picture of me with the plant, just because I don't know. I think it's fun. And so when I put a plant picture down on Materia Medica, it's typically me or one of my kids or my mom. And sometimes when I do that, I'll also put what we were doing when we made the medicines, or got the medicine or whatever. And then there may be a picture of when, I harvested. Like my greenhouse is full of catnip. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna use all it. I think I'm gonna have to make teas, catnip tea. It came from one plant, but then I didn't water my greenhouse for maybe a week. and she just likes the heat, and the dirt was dry, and she is prolific or whatever. She is beautiful. And so she's starting to seed. So I was actually out there collecting seeds a little while ago, trying to get the seed head so I can have more of her, because this girl, she big. And I'm like, if I can put her somewhere else next year, and she can spread the love. I mean, I can have 2, 3 beds of catnip. And I like catnip. I have cats. So they like cat weed. That's what I call it. But it also is a really good nervine. And so I like to utilize it a lot with a lot of my other nervines for support. Okay, so when you are getting information about what you're going to put in your Materia Medica for your herbs or your homeopathy, you want to make sure you get trusted herbal text. You want to try to get the updated ones, but also look at the old ones. You heard me, I said I go back to the books. I got so many herbal books, it's bad. There's a lot of them. But read what everybody says about that herb, and then figure out what points seem to be, the same, what points might be new information for you, and then also, what points, what contraindications are might be there. Like Aviva Ram, her purple book, what is the botanical medicine for the woman or something? I forget the name of it, but her purple, it's a maroon book, and it has lots of information, and it has a lot of studies that were utilized on herbs. So it's really nice to have her book, because it's the science behind some of the herbs that we may not have the science from when you're reading, Phyllis Light or some of these other herbalists that have herbal books. Also homeopathy, Materia Medica books. Sometimes I look at homeopathy books to find the energetics of an herb, because remember, homeopathy, they have a lot of herbs in there, but homeopaths are really big about what is the energy of this herb, what is this herb saying. And so a herbal book may not have that. A herbal book may just list, okay, this is mimosa, she's good for this, you use her like this, you make her like that. But in the homeopathy books, they're like, oh, it's energetic. And especially if you find a book that's about miasms in homeopathy, because that book would really be like, okay, this book can be, this homeopathic remedy is best when wet, or best when whatever, and best when da da da. And so if you study herbalism and homeopathy, this is why I geek out about both of them. When you hear some of the indications for the utilization of a homeopathic remedy, it can kind of tell you more about that herb and what that herb likes. And so I can't think of one off the top of my head, but we can do it as an exercise if y'all want to. In a little bit, I can grab 2 books. But like one homeopathic remedy, I can't remember which one, says better when wet. And so it's not the remedy, it's the person. They're better when wet. So like it might be somebody who is better when they have a bath, or they like the rain, or whatever. So that would be better for that particular condition. And sometimes that thing has to do with that herb as well. It's kind of like a description of what the herb likes. And so I thought that was really, I was geeking out about that. I was like, and then you look at this one, look at that one, but I can't remember one for an example. What's the name again, please? Name of what? What'd I say? Mimosa? Name of the book. Is that what you mean? Name of the book?
Yes, ma'am. The name of the book that you said, the purple book.
It's Aviva Ram. Let me go. Hold on. Let me Google it.
Thank
Let me
you.
let me go Google it. It's a maroon book. Where is Amazon? I hate linking Amazon books.
It's botanical medicine for women's health.
That's what it is. Botanical medicine for women's health. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's a really good resource. She has one before that. She has a lot of books. But the one before that was not as detailed as this one. So I like this one. And Rosemary Gladstar, I liked a lot of her books because they're simple. And I know a lot of people don't do Susan Weed anymore because she's a tyrant, but I already own her books. Some people that be like, they threw their books away. I ain't throwing that no book away. I bought that. So I still have it. I don't always utilize her medicine. Um, but I do still have all them books that I purchased with my green money. I won't buy no more, but um, but yeah, I had a friend who actually was a student of hers, and she said, yeah, it was common for her to like pop us. I was like, excuse me, pop you? Like, what? This is the early 2000s, and I'm just like, I'm gonna tell you what's last dies. Her podcast. Have you ever listened to her podcast? That is what's a laugh. Like it's a whole what?
Between the podcast and the Facebook page of survivors of Susan Weed, like if you ever have a bad day, you just need to disassociate. Oh my gosh.
I know. It's like a bunch of people with a narcissist partner, and they keep like marrying him or her again. Like I'm like, what? Like my friend that apprenticed with her for I think she said she was with her for a year. She was a young, just got out of college student who wanted to have an apprenticeship with an herbalist, heard about Susan Reed, went to her place and was like, hey, can I stay? Because that's how she got a lot of people. And she was like, yeah, she would like make us run naked in the greenhouse because she'd make us run naked in the greenhouse. Survivors of Susan Weed, that's the name of it, Aaron. The She would make us run naked in the greenhouse. I was like, what? Because she didn't want the plants to be be exposed to the fibers in their clothes. I was like, no, man. She said, oh yeah, I did all kind of stuff. But Susan, yeah, it's a whole thing. You will find
I think she only pull that with people she thinks she could pull it with. Cause she couldn't pull that crap with me. I'd be like, girl, get your life together. We are not running naked in nobody's green.
yeah, she said she was running that, get water in each plant. Each plant had to have a certain amount of water, like an ounce per day. And it was just all kind. I was like, oh no, ma'am. But she did come, not but despite that, she did come out a beautiful herbalist. And this person is a nudist. And I don't know if she became a nudist after a time with Susan Weed, but that's who she is. So she probably didn't care. She was the first. I don't know. Have y'all ever had a nudist client before? Like I don't care if people are nudists. It doesn't bother me, but it just threw me because her and her husband are both nudists and their children are all nudists. And when I went to do their home visit, they didn't have clothes on. And so he was like, let me go put on some shorts. He put on some shorts, but the kids were all naked and she was naked. And I was like, what's going on? I was just like, I'm gonna need, where's the witness? I had done the home visit by myself.
Tony, I don't have any panties.
Here's a whole thing. I was like, where am I at? I like look, and she was like, hey, how you doing? And then later we had this conversation, me and this woman who is now a very trusted friend. I love her to death. And they have started putting on clothes when I come over. I'd be like, y'all, her daughter started getting pubic hair. And so she told her daughter, she was like, you can be naked if that's how you want to be, but your pubic hair is on the table, and so that's just not sanitary. And I was like, what? Like people, like the places you go, I think I have the best clients in America. They be doing the most. I'd be like, what? And then they be high all the time, so they nude and high. And they have hammocks in their in front of the father. It's weird. They have hammocks in their living room. And so they all be chilling in the hammocks, it's hanging from the, like it's a whole thing. Yeah, but she was like, you're growing pubic hair and da da da. But eventually that older daughter did start wearing clothes. She was probably like maybe 11. It was when her breast started budding. She just like, you know what? I need to cover up because I got all this stuff. But I was like, Why you gotta tell this girl her pubes on the table? And did I eat anything at their house? Never, ever, 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 ever. I love me a good hammock too, but not around a bunch of nudists, because kids don't know how to wipe their butt good and just all the things. That's just too much for me. Um, Stimulate her on labor, man. Oh, like give her clitoral stimulation during labor. Babe, you gotta do that yourself. Don't expect me to do that. That's not something I can do. But like the farm midwives, they was always telepathic and they were feeling psychedelic. Like if you read Anna Mae's books, that's she said we got to feeling psychedelic. And so we started rubbing on her breasts and giving her nipple stimulation, and it seemed to make her contractions come. And she did some clitoral stimulation. I was like, what is wrong with you people? Like, I'm just like, and then they talk about us. I'm like, what? Y'all was all naked together with the same partners, all kinds of stuff. But to each his own. As long as y'all ain't including me, whatever. Y'all do y'all, but it's the whole thing. So anyway, sorry. I went see this is why I got a PowerPoint, so I stay on topic. You also can make sure you utilize peer-reviewed herbal journals. The herbal study business is booming. Ever since COVID and people discovered elderberry syrup, it's ridiculous. It's kind of funny because everybody's like, I've been taking my elderberry syrup. What about some of these other herbs, baby? When they be like elderberry is good. But ever since then, you are starting to see peer-reviewed studies on a lot of these herbs. What is the name of this one? Choline. You will find all sorts of things about choline right now in peer-reviewed studies. There's a lot of berberine in peer-reviewed studies because people like, don't give me metformin. So just really utilize that stuff too. And if you don't have an up-to-date account, find somebody who does and utilize their up-to-date account so you can get access to these peer-reviewed studies. A lot of them you can use Google Scholar for. You go to Google Scholar instead of just Google and say peer-reviewed study on, say, echinacea or choline or whatever, and Google Scholar will be like, here you go, and you may not be able to access the entire study, but you typically can at least access the abstract so that you can see sort of what they're talking about. Of course, mentor notes or clinic experiences, like I said, at the bottom of your Materia Medica, if you have time, just write in, gave to 35-year-old, blah, 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 no adverse outcomes, such. And things that you hear people, because everybody uses herbs differently. We don't have a working base of strong knowledge of how these herbs work. And so sometimes people will I use 1 ounce, or I use 2 ounces, or I use this, or I use that. And so, well, not 2 ounces, 2 dropperfuls. I use 1 dropperful, 2 dropperfuls, whatever. So really listen to people who are talking about the herbs so that you can get that information as well. Always cross-reference the safety info. Make sure you're getting the safety info that you need. So that when you're utilizing with folks, you know what's safe and what's not safe. Optional topics to explore in your Materia Medica include pregnancy safe herbs. You want to know what's safe. You will have people all the time, like I said, sending you pictures of meds and being like, can I take this? Can I take that? You'll see that all the time. So you want to know, what you can take. And I tell people, y'all heard me say I'm a bioregional herbalist. I tell them, look, that's not an herb that grows out here in Mississippi. I think Mississippi grows enough herbs that we don't have to utilize herbs from other places, and I just don't know those myself. You also have lactation support remedies that you want to be able to utilize. You want to know what's breastfeeding safe, what's safe if I'm breastfeeding and I'm pregnant, because that changes as well. And so you also want to know homeopathic acute birth remedies, so things like in a moment. I just had a baby. I wasn't ready. I didn't know. I'm so scared. Aconite, it's perfect for that. I just lost a lot of blood, almost like my whole blood volume. Ferrum phos. My legs are running, and oh girl, I just feel like, how my knees hurt because I've been on my knees for 20 hours. Arnica. A lot of times swollen vagina, arnica. I'm not swollen vagina, swollen vulva. Swollen cervix, arnica directly on the cervix. So these are things that you can do in the acute. And then emotional support herbs, you definitely want to have them because it's America. And we got all kind of emotions out here in these streets, and it's 2025, and it's, it's garbage for some people. I have a client I'm working with right now. That partner is detained. He's been detained for 4 months now. She is due in August. So we're working around Nervines that can be supportive for her in this time of shock, because every time something happens, there's more shock, and so we work with the shock, and then we put something else on board to work with the nerves. And then we're working on cortisol releasers to, try to make sure that this stress doesn't pass on to this baby, and talking about, ways we can handle that. Things to remember, Materia Medica is a living document. You can continuously change it. It's not one thing all the time. It's just like protocols. Things come out, you're gonna change it. You can add notes from clinical use, talks about that, and you want to revisit and update regularly. So if somebody talks about a particular herb, you hear something, you find something, just add to it. And it will become one of your most valuable midwifery tools. And so especially if you have it on your hand, you can easily get to it if it's I'm trying to say a doc or on Dropbox or something like that, so that you're not having to look for a paper document. Okay. So let's look at mimosa as an example for a Materia Medica. So we have, this is not my, here it is. Okay, so let's look at this one. Our remedy name is mimosa. You might put your common names as silk tree, happiness tree, mimosa, pomosa, whatever else. You're gonna have the botanical name. These change. Remember, y'all heard me say mimosa has this pink flower, but there's also a yellow flower mimosa. So that botanical name is gonna be different than the pink flower mimosa. So 50 years from now, when somebody's reading your notes, you want to make sure they know what you're utilizing. Because if you think about like the books that we're reading, Listen to Me Good, when they talk about some of the herbs, number one, they don't always tell us how they use them, how much they use. They just say they use this one thing, and they may call it something that's not necessarily what we're still calling it today. So it's really important to utilize a botanical name whenever possible, when you know it. It is of the Leguminosae plant family, and there's lots of plant families. And you can find this information very easily. And when anytime it's part of a family, that also tells you who should not be using that. So if they're it's part of the legume family, then if somebody has allergies to that, you wouldn't want to offer them mimosa. The actions of mimosa are nervine. Um, it's a mood elevator, and it's an anxiety herb. The indications are for emotional stress, insomnia, grief, postpartum mood changes. And remember, it's not a front. It's the first thing you'd give for postpartum mood changes, but it's not the primary. And the preparations are typically tincture, or flower essence, or a tea. Those are typical. And remember, the tincture can be made with the flower or the bark, and you can put that on there. And so then we talk about dosage. You can do the tincture about 1 to 3 milliliters up to 3 times a day. And it's the tincture of the flower, not the bark. The bark is a lot more potent, so you probably just do one milliliter 3 times a day versus the 3 milliliters. But if you had a flower that was in its decline, it was kind of white, it wasn't quite that vibrant pink anymore, and you got some of that medicine later in the season, then you do probably 3 milliliters, because that medicine is probably not as strong. As a tea, you're gonna do a teaspoon of dry flower per cup. And again, the safety, avoid large doses in pregnancy, and caution if people have a legume allergy. And in energetics, she's sweet and she's slightly warm. In the notes, it blends well with lemon balm for emotional calming. And so you'd also maybe put, Tony uses mimosa with skullcap and passion flower to make people go to sleep in third trimester, or she might use it as a front line. I use mimosa tincture sort of like Ignition. oh, something happened. Oh my God, this happened, da da da. Okay, here's some mimosa. Calm down. And then we can move to the next thing. And then also you might want to put in your notes that this can be used as a smoking blend. If you have someone who's utilizing marijuana and they use indica, add some mimosa to it. If they use marijuana, if they use marijuana as a tincture, you can also add mimosa tincture to that. So you can use that, and then also thinking about what other kinds of ways that it can be blended. I think did I say that you can use it in a perennial support oil? You can use mimosa in a perennial support oil. It's supposed to help alleviate the ring of fire. You know how people say the frankincense alleviates the ring of fire. It's been said that that mimosa perennial oil can do the same thing. All right, any questions? Any questions? I got answers.
I have a question, please. Maybe I never heard that before about the frankincense for the Ring of Fire.
Yeah,
Mm,
they say
okay.
that's a wise man brought Mary frankincense.
I thought it was for breathing for the baby.
No, it could be, but it's good for the
Mm,
ring. It's a good birth herb. Yeah,
okay. Thank you.
it's good stuff. That's why it's so expensive. Okay. I got this one bottle from Young Living I done had for like 15 years. I'll be like, I'm gonna take one drop, and I'm gonna put it in this other oil, and I'm gonna open it back up in a year, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. It's also, have you heard that when you put frankincense on a baby soft spot, they hear everything you tell them in that moment?
No.
So you put it on their soft spot. This what do they call it? Raindrop therapy. This raindrop therapist was at one of my births, and the baby had started emerging, and the baby was in the call. But she was like, put frankincense on a soft spot. I was like, that's not the soft spot. That's the membrane, you know. And she was like, we got to do that so she can understand everything. I was like, I don't even know what you're saying, but when we see a head, an actual head, then we'll do that. So we put frankincense on there. And then it was a quiet moment, and everybody spoke good words to the baby, like a life blessing. And it was nice, and she was quiet during it. I was like, oh yeah. And so every time that mom had a baby, we did that. I think I caught 4 or 5 of her baby. Five. I caught her last 5. And so we've always done that. And the reason why she had a home birth is because the doctor wouldn't let her do this in the hospital. So the first one, she was like, is it okay for me to put oil on my baby head? And I thought she meant oil for perennial support. When she said that, I was like, sure, you can let your baby. I don't care what you put on the baby. I'm like, whatever. And then the raindrop therapist over here, wait a minute, you got to put it in the soft spot. So I was like, okay. And I read it somewhere else. I was like, oh, they're just not crazy, crazy. Yeah. Any more questions? All right. Questions. No questions. So y'all all can make your own material medical. Y'all ready for that? I know it's gonna be an assignment, don't you? You know how to do it now. We'll do a couple. I'll let you do your favorite herbs. All right, it's everybody's favorite part. Y'all ready for your pop quiz? Yes. Unless y'all have more questions, or you want to talk about anything else, or whatever.
Yeah, back to this frankincense. Are we using it diluted in a carrier oil for the Ring of Fire? How are you using it?
Yeah, I use it in the carrier oil for the ring of fire. I do if it's a girl and we know it's a girl, I use avocado oil. But if it's not if we don't know, I use just regular either fractionated coconut oil or what do you call it? Jojoba oil or whatever you call it, you know.
Jojoba.
Ho 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 ho. Jehovah, whatever. Y'all
And
know.
why the difference
Because avocado
in the
oil
oils?
avocado is a feminine oil. And so if we
Mhm.
know that we're putting something on her, we want her to have like the femininity. And that's if, I mean, some families may not want that, but
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I'm glad to hear your voice.
Oh, you too. We haven't seen you in a while.
I know,
Selling
girl.
dogs. Been selling dogs.
Child, listen. Be careful what you ask for.
Oh, blessings, girl, blessings. I'm waiting on this
It
last baby.
is, it is a blessing, but
It's a blessing.
it's just June. I'm tired.
It's a blessing.
hmm I got blessed big time yesterday because I was buying, restocking up after we got done at the pool and went in Gordon's, and I had a cart full of stuff. And these guys came in, they was talking, not to take over the class, but real
Okay.
quick. Um, Walking through the store talking about whatever. They was a little loud, but guys being guys. They get to the register ahead of me. And I don't know what went on, but something with their payment situation and they holding up the line. I'm tired. I'm like, can we get this on? And they finally get their stuff together. And one of the guys, he was like, whatever she got in her cart, I'ma pay for it.
Are you serious?
Kid you not. I
Wow.
thought I thought I was being punked. I was like, for real? He was like, yeah, if it's enough on the card, I'ma pay for it. And it wasn't no food stamp card. and and the guy rung me up and sure enough he swiped his card and paid for my whole cart of stuff. That made my day. I was like, thank you very much.
I'm grateful.
Appreciate you.
Right?
So that was a good, you know, feel good moment. But you can hear how tired I am. Anyway, back to class.
It's a good blessing. It definitely
It
is.
is.
Okay, first question. What is the botanical name of mimosa and what plant family does it belong to? Y'all remember the plant family because I said that like a million times.
Lagoon.
Legume. And what is the botanical name?
Alopecia jula blah blah blah.
No, it sure is. All of them. Now, name two traditional uses of mimosa flower in traditional Chinese medicine. It is to calm the spirit. It's a heart ease. And it's for insomnia for traditional Chinese medicine. List two medicinal actions of mimosa flower. I think somebody put perineum support and anxiety, those two words. It's an anti-anxiety med, it's a mood elevator, and it's a mild sedative. Mild, very mild. What are two common preparation methods for using mimosa in herbal medicine?
Tincture, flower essence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And y'all know I like to go back. Here's the next one. Elixir or tincture, yeah. Name two major organs or structures that are part of the lymphatic system. I sound so excited. I had my lymph cleared yesterday. It was nice. Not everybody answered at one time.
CC, that one. I'm trying to remember.
There you go. Liver. Okay. CC. Yeah, you remember that one. Sweet. Sweet. All right, y'all did good. Lymphatic vessels and tonsils and lymph nodes also. What are T cells good for? Bugging. I'll be that. Y'all funny. Definitely that. Name two types of information considered protected health information under HIPAA. Name, date of birth.
All the things, address, phone number.
Don't be giving nobody stuff out. Telling nobody business. Don't be telling nobody business. Oh, this one. Did somebody mention this one?
Isn't it like it filters? It filters the blood and stuff. I don't know.
You sure you don't know? It sounds like you know. It filters the blood. You're right.
Uh-huh.
All right, all right. Name two herbs that have astringent properties and may be helpful in postpartum hemorrhage situations. Astringent is the key word there. Yarrow? Which hazel? Sweet. Which part of the yarrow plant is typically used to manage bleeding? Yes, the aerial part. So the flowers and the leaves are typically used for managing bleeding. Which herb often used as a tincture is considered one of the fast acting for sudden heavy postpartum bleeding?
Cotton root,
What is it?
cotton root or shepherd's purse.
Shepherd's purse. Yeah. We typically for cotton root, because we also are looking at I would say cotton root probably, yeah. But shepherd's purse is the right answer. That's the one that is gonna be more, what's the word I'm looking for? Well known, I guess. Among some circles. What does CBC test measure? Two things. Two things. Hemoglobin and hematocrit. What else?
If it's with differentials, the white blood cells and all of that stuff.
Neutrophil.
Red blood cells, platelets,
All right, yep.
MCV.
WBC and monomolecular blah blah blah. And all the things, as they say. Which CBC component is responsible for carrying oxygen to the tissues?
Hemoglobin.
Sweet. I can't believe it's raining again. When reviewing a CBC, what does the hematocrit percentage represent?
Isn't it like the amount of the percentage of the red blood cells?
The amount of red blood cells in the blood volume, yes. Exactly. You're also good on the CBC. This is an easy one, y'all know this. But do you know this one? This is my favorite one. I asked y'all this last time. Let's see if you remembered it. Which enzyme in saliva begins the digestion of carbohydrates in the mouth? Yeah, NACE. You're right. You know this one, Mo. You got a whole what's the name for this? You have a amylase, yes. What was it? Kool-Aid amylase or something you said? You got a whole thing for that one. Which organ produces the majority of digestive enzymes used in the small intestine? Pancreas. And what is the primary function of the enzyme pepsin in the stomach? To relieve gas. Almost. What you say, Kiki?
Right now. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm thinking of the medicine pepsin, AC.
It breaks down protein, pepsin, protein. That's the way I remember that one. All right, y'all some harder ones. Y'all know too much. It's just beautiful. Name one potential challenge associated with a baby in a persistent occipital posterior position during labor.
That person is about to have some powerful back pain
Mhm.
labor, coupling of contractions.
Oh, mama. Hopefully she got some doula and ice and tens and whatever else. That position is often the one that's gonna have more interventions as well of the other lives. Okay. Okay, what position is this baby? I don't want y'all all answer at the same time. So we got a baby's back is toward the mother's left back side. And the back of the baby's skull is pointing posteriorly toward the mother's spine. And the baby's face is angled toward the mother's right front side. So first we know baby's on the left side. So y'all got L, right? And baby's not breached, so O is right. And so the last part you got to figure out is it a P or A? So what is everybody else saying? The key is the back of the baby's skull is pointing posteriorly towards the mother's spine. So back of the baby's skull, back of the head is laying on the spine. It's pointing towards the spine. So that's a LOP baby. That baby we want to move because we're gonna be in labor forever. 15 million days. Okay, how about this baby? Baby's back is towards the mother's right front side. The occipital points anteriorly towards the mother's belly and slightly to the right. The baby's face is turned towards mother's left back side. What position is this baby? ROA. We like ROA babies. We like all babies, but ROA babies are they just come on out of your mama. Okay, what is this baby? Baby's buttocks present first into the pelvis instead of the head. The legs are folded up towards the baby's chest. Folded up towards baby's chest. With feet near the head, the baby's hips are flexed and the knees are extended. What position is this baby? Frankenstein breech. The baby's buttocks presents first, but unlike the Frank breech baby, one or both legs are extended downward. What is this baby? Footling breech or what kind of breech? Is it a complete breech? No, so it's considered a footling breech or an incomplete breech. Yeah, complete breech is both legs up. Frank breech is complete breech. What is placental abruption and what are common signs of it? No, placental abruption. Detaching of the placenta from the uterine wall prematurely or incomplete or something like that would be considered placental abruption. Lots of bleeding. Yes, lots of bleeding. Abdominal pain often, especially if it's a concealed abruption, meaning one that happens and the uterus is not contracting yet or something. Sometimes it'll be hard and bleeding would be your sign of a potential abruption. All of that. Fetal distress. Yeah, because baby ain't getting what they need for sure. How can placenta accreta affect delivery? What is placenta accreta first? What is placenta accreta? What is? Oh, not part of cervix.
Okay, I'm tired of typing. It's when it just attached abnormal.
Is when
One of y'all
too
breaking up.
deeply.
Attached too deeply. Yes. Who is at a high incidence of accretion?
People that have had C-section, placenta previa, any type of uterine surgeries, multiple gestation, IVF, AMA.
Yes. Yep. All of those. Yep. Ding, ding. Y'all good. Do y'all have any questions? You're also good on your retention. That's one big part of this. It's like retaining all this stuff. Like it's one thing to learn it but you really want to make sure that you're retaining all of this information. And so whatever you gotta do to make that stuff stick, if you gotta say amylase and Kool-Aid and then forget it, then do that. And that makes that stuff stick a lot better in your head. And so even amylase, I bring amylase up a lot because most of our pregnant folks that we get may be coming from a standard American diet, which is carb heavy. And you try to move those people from a carb heavy diet where the amylase is being utilized a lot in the saliva to eating vegetables and eating, proteins and all that. They often will need a little help. They'll need a digestive enzyme that is not just amylase. I mean, you would want a digestive enzyme that does not include amylase because they have plenty of amylase. They need more pepsin or something like that to help break down the meat if they're eating a lot of protein. Sometimes that's why they're like, I started eating good and I got gas and my stomach hurt. Their digestive system doesn't know what to do with all that food that you got them eating. And so you want them to have a good digestive enzyme on board so that their body starts learning what it needs to make in order to process those foods so they can also utilize all the nutrients that they're taking in. Because otherwise, if you got a bunch of amylase and you don't have anything starting to break down your protein, then you're gonna have more waste product, and not have enough of the good stuff that you need them to have, Um, unless they putting syrup on their broccoli. That's hilarious. I got a client that she like, I eat broccoli. Now I put some syrup on it. Excuse me. You're putting syrup on broccoli, ma'am. She was like, girl, yeah, it's either that or honey. I'm like, okay, go with God, do what you need to do. Yeah, but she eating it. Yeah, it's one of the important parts. Any any questions, y'all good? Well, what you got your mouth out for? All the teams, all the teams, all the teams. Y'all hitting homework really good, I must
Syrup and
say.
broccoli.
Oh, syrup and broccoli, yeah, girl. You know these here clients, I love them. But I'll be like, what you doing what now? Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm like, well, hey, if that works for you, at least we getting some broccoli down here. Or eating a salad drenched in ranch. I'll be like, okay. Hey, whatever works good for you. They'd be so happy. I eat salad, Miss Tony, they come in there and the whole bowl full of ranch. I'm like, okay. It's better than eating ranch when they hot wings. Like it could be worse.
That always tickles me too. I'm like, wow, like it's like the whole bottle of ranch. It's in the one little salad.
Uh-huh. These people live in my house. So I mean, like, I'm like my kids bad about it. They ranch and honey mustard. If it goes on
Mm.
literally single grocery order, and because they eat it that much, I'm like, okay, yeah. PJ was eating
Yes.
honey mustard thing.
Yeah.
Any questions? I'm gonna let y'all go an hour early because my power is blinking, so I'm gonna get knocked off in a little bit. We keep having these storms. I got a tree hit the house the other day. It wasn't bad. Um, because we got this nice metal roof on this trailer. Rolled off the back, so I gotta treat it. I gotta cut up. Then we got another limb that fell on the fence and broke the fence. Then we got two limbs out of my big oak tree that got hit by lightning. I don't know. It was some storm that came through. And it just was like, was this a tornado or like what? This is not like a normal thunderstorm, you know. But apparently we're supposed to get some rock and rolling tonight too. And I'm just like, this is not normal Mississippi in June.
We got caught out in a nasty storm like that last week, just as we packed up. All we needed was about 15 more minutes. And them waves were sloshing up out the pool, took my tent. So we had to take the better tent over there. And now today a storm popped up, flipped my tent upside down. So she got a boo-boo. And she'll be getting patched up with some duct tape tomorrow.
Okay.
And yeah, the storms have been like crazy. It rained here 26 out of 31 days in May.
Are you serious? And that is so
Yep.
unseasonable. Not normal.
Yep. So
Like,
it's been a lot of rain.
that one day, probably the same day that y'all talked about that day we had all those trees fall. Our road had trees, like it was crazy. It seemed like it was tornado, but it wasn't.
Mm,
It was trees like they broke. The limbs were, I'm like, was it lightning? Like this couldn't have just been wind.
yeah.
So that happened, and then the next day we had flash flood warnings. And I was like, is this because normally this time of year it's just dry. Like there's nothing. And so like this year it's like, oh, it's gonna rain again. Oh, it's gonna rain again. Like my thing is going off talking about severe thunderstorm warning and lightning and flash flood. I'm like, it's in June.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut this recording off. If y'all don't have y'all got any more questions, y'all good? Where's my recording? Have y'all seen Straw yet?
Not yet.
Oh my God.
Oh man, I was getting ready to say, can we talk about that real quick?
Oh my goodness. I saw it once and a half. And so I'm gonna watch it again. Maybe I don't know, probably not tonight because my internet then went off 3 times. So probably not tonight, but yeah, I'm definitely gonna